1. The man in the grocery store. It happened about 3 years ago, when I was still in college. I had gone out late at night to grab a few things from a local grocery store that stayed open until midnight. It was around 11:30 and the place was almost empty. The quiet was unsettling, just the hum of the freezers, the occasional squeak of my cart's wheels, and my own footsteps echoing. As I reached the back aisle, I noticed a man standing completely still near the cereal section. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't holding anything. He was just staring. At first I thought maybe he was lost in thought or waiting for someone. I brushed it off and went on with my shopping. But when I turned into the next aisle, there he was again. No sound of footsteps. No sound of a cart. Just him, already there, staring down the row. I tried to laugh it off in my head, telling myself it was just bad timing. But after the third time of finding him waiting in whatever aisle I went into, I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. His face was blank, no emotion. His eyes didn't even blink. I picked up my pace, heading straight toward the registers. My cart rattled loudly as I moved quickly. The cashier gave me a half smile, clearly bored from the quiet night shift. As she rang up my items, I glanced behind me. The man was standing at the end of the aisle, half hidden by the shelf, still staring. I whispered to the cashier, "Hey, do you see that guy back there?" She looked, but by the time her eyes followed where I pointed, he was gone. I hurried out of the store and pushed my bags into the back seat of my car. But as I pulled out of the parking lot, my headlights caught him. He was standing by the edge of the road, facing me, hands hanging limply by his side. I drove off as fast as I could. The police later told me there had been reports of a man harassing women in that same store over the past month. They never caught him. Story 2. The bus stop stranger. This happened when I was 19. I had missed the last train home and had to take the late bus instead. It was close to midnight, and the bus stop was empty, except for me and another man sitting on the far bench. At first glance, he looked normal, maybe in his 40s, wearing a hoodie pulled up over his head. But the longer I waited, the more uneasy I felt. He kept shifting his body so that he was always facing me, no matter how I moved. The street was silent, no cars passing, just the occasional flicker of the streetlight above. He suddenly spoke up, his voice low and raspy. "You live around here?" I didn't answer. I pretended to check my phone. He laughed, a short, sharp sound that cut through the silence. "You shouldn't ignore people," he said. "That's rude." Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave, but the bus was due any minute. I stood up and started pacing near the stop, hoping the headlights of the bus would appear. But instead, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't wearing shoes. His feet were dirty, blistered, like he had been walking barefoot for miles. When the bus finally pulled up, I rushed inside and sat as close to the driver as possible. I turned back to see if the man was following. He hadn't gotten on the bus, but he was standing right outside the window, staring directly at me, his bare feet pressed against the cold pavement. As the bus drove off, I kept my eyes on him until he was nothing but a shadow under the flickering streetlight. I never saw him again, but for weeks afterward, I had nightmares of waking up to see him standing at the foot of my bed, barefoot, smiling. Story 3. The parking lot. This happened when I was working late at my job in a small shopping plaza. I had closed up the store around 10 p.m. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few scattered cars. As I walked to my car, I noticed a figure leaning against the lamppost near the far corner. They weren't smoking. They weren't on their phone. Just standing there, waiting. The air was cold, and I could hear the sound of my own footsteps crunching on the gravel. I reached my car and unlocked it, but before I could get inside, I heard a voice behind me. "You dropped something." I turned. The stranger was suddenly closer than I thought. He was holding out a set of keys, not mine. I shook my head. "Those aren't mine." He smiled slowly, showing too many teeth. "They will be." I didn't know what he meant, but my heart dropped. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. He stepped closer, placing the keys on the hood of my car and tapping them against the metal. The tapping grew louder, faster, until I sped out of the lot. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold the steering wheel. The next morning, when I returned to work, the keys were gone, but deep scratches had been carved into the hood of my car, spelling out a single word: soon. Outro. Those were 3 scary true stranger encounter horror stories in public. Which story scared you the most? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true horror stories.